We brought it to you as breaking news yesterday. The killing of Charlie Kirk from our area, went to Wheeling High School, 31 years old, married with 2 small children. And we do know the FBI is going to have a press conference, maybe updating us on the case at 1:45 p.m. We know they put out pictures of a suspect that they are looking for in a manhunt right now. We want to go to Spencer Joseph. He is a reporter with Fox 13 in Salt Lake City to talk about what he knows at this point. Spencer, any updates you can provide at this hour?
Yeah, at this point, the latest is those images that were released by the Salt Lake FBI branch as well as the Utah Department of Public Safety. Those are new images of a person of interest, and the FBI is also offering a $100,000 reward for the capture of that suspect or that person of interest. At this point, we know that investigators on scene have been able to trace where that shooter left from campus into kind of a wooded area on the north side where the weapon was recovered. And at this point, it is an all-out manhunt across the state trying to find the suspect you're taking a look at now. Those were the 2 photos released by the FBI and the Utah Department of Public Safety just moments ago. And again, everyone in our community, everyone across Utah is on edge today as this shooter is still on the loose.
Spencer, can you talk about the role surveillance cameras and images have played in this? Those images that you're speaking of the suspect appears to be taken from surveillance video. Can you talk about how the FBI has really called for some of that video, even people that were there on the ground during this conversation with Charlie Kirk, how they've requested that they turn in their video, turn in their pictures?
Yeah, exactly. And moments, I mean, it felt like moments after the information was confirmed and released, a link was set up for individuals not only to share their footage of the event that happened, but also to look at the Ring doorbell camera footage around the area. There's actually quite a lot of homes. There's a lot of residential areas right around this campus in Orem, Utah. It is something that they're really going door to door and knocking on some of these homeowners' homes to try and see if they have any surveillance video. Going back to those pictures, yes, you're right. Those were actually CCTV footage from the campus. The FBI confirmed that they had these high quality images of who they believe is a suspect or a person of interest in this case. And so I think it's going to ultimately play a very large role in understanding where the shooter went after leaving campus, as well as potentially having somebody in the public identify this person.
Spencer, you mentioned that the community is pretty much on edge, and that's definitely understandable considering that this person is still out there, at least to our knowledge. Can you talk about, how the campus community has responded to this?
Yeah, I mean, I was on campus about maybe 30 minutes after the shooting. We're in Salt Lake City, so we're about half an hour away from Orem. And, the moment we heard it come out on our police scanners, we rushed down there. I arrived in the parking lot maybe about half a mile away from where the shooting was, and it was gridlock. Cars couldn't leave. Students were in tears. They were besides themselves. I spoke to one woman who just couldn't believe it was happening, tears streaming down their face. They said that they were in the second row of this event and unfortunately had to witness everything that happened. Yesterday, I also talked to a couple of staff members that were leaving. They had kind of sheltered in place, hearing that there was a shooter on campus. So they had sheltered in place with students, keeping them safe. And finally, those staff members were released as the police cleared all of the rooms on campus, and they found me and we talked for a little bit. And even on camera, they said, we cannot believe that a weapon was even able to get onto campus and commit this act of violence. They were incredibly disturbed by it, rightfully so. And I think a lot of the staff members and students at Utah Valley University, which is, by the way, the largest university in Utah in terms of undergraduate population, bigger than the University of Utah, bigger than Brigham Young University in terms of its student body. Every single one of those students today is asking some of those same questions. Are we safe on campus? How is this going to impact our education? And what happens next?
Very good point you bring up there. People shocked that this weapon was able to make it on campus. Here's my question to you concerning that. Do we know if students were checked prior to, or anyone that came out to this event? Were they checked in any way by security before they were allowed to gather and hear and be a part of this event at Utah Valley State University?
To my knowledge, they were not. I think that's something that the police are investigating and looking at. We know that there was some uniformed officers and some plainclothes officers that were in the crowd as well, looking out for any danger or anything that could happen. I think that that's something that necessarily hasn't been released, but from my knowledge, from students that I've talked to, they weren't checked. This wasn't something where you had to walk through a metal detector. But it is worth noting the shooter, and this is confirmed by the FBI, was on a nearby rooftop. So we're not sure, exactly how they got up there. I think that's one of the big questions that a lot of people are happening. But that shooter was actually on top of a nearby rooftop and not in the crowd. So yeah, I think that's a huge part of the investigation, and also parts of the follow-up safety questions as it comes to events like this, not only here, but across the country.
No, you're right about where the shooter was positioned. There's been obviously videos circulating online, people that were in the audience that it looked like prior to the event kind of saw someone on top of the roof before the video starts. The people actually say we saw him run from one part of the roof to the next. I think they thought it was a security measure to begin with, so they didn't report it. But a good point that you bring up there about the positioning of this shooter. Let's talk about Utah Valley State University's response to this. What has the response been so far?
In terms of the faculty, or in terms of, like the administration, or in terms of the campus population?
The administration. Is the administration saying anything about this shooting and really what happens next? Is campus open for the day? I would imagine that it's completely shut down. Kind of those mechanics of it all.
Yeah, correct. So the campus is actually closed until Monday, as the investigators are still out there right now. In fact, we have several crews in the area. A lot of them are looking at those officers. They're combing through campus still, as this is a very large scene. So the administration has confirmed the campus is closed until at least Monday. At this point, they haven't sent a lot of information about what the follow-up is going to be, but obviously they are offering resources to students that potentially witnessed this and may need some mental health services. And really, I mean, I understand that completely, that these individuals fearing for not only their lives, but fearing for the horrible scene that they just witnessed, the campus is offering them resources to make sure that they're okay. So far, though, the campus police is working with the FBI and with the Department of Public Safety here in Utah to be a coordinating agency and help them in any way that they can. So we know they're heavily involved in this investigation process, but the administration hasn't said many things about moving forward in terms of what happens after Monday, just that the campus is closed until Monday.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to events on campus, events that are polarizing like this, to your understanding, the university, I'm sure, provides some measure of security, but is it on the person who's hosting this event to then bring their own security as well?
So to my knowledge, in this particular event, it was a coordination between both. In fact, I believe it was the chief of the Utah Valley University Police Department that said they had worked very closely with Charlie Kirk's security team, and he did have a security team on hand to not only have officers there, but have members of his security team coordinate with them. So it seems like in this particular instance that did happen. To the extent in which maybe there was a failure, I think that will continue to be a conversation of how these officers, how these departments may manage these type of very, very large events. I know it's a conversation already in the community, just from individuals on campus, that they're concerned that this was able to happen. But I do know that and even the chief of police at Utah Valley University said they actually worked very closely in coordination with Charlie Kirk's security team to set up this event, and had really coordinated with each other for, I believe, about the month leading up to this event.
I know you mentioned that Orem is about 30 minutes away from Salt Lake City. Just looking at the population, the dynamics of Orem, 96,000 people, a smaller area when you compare it to Salt Lake City. Any idea how the community is responding to this? Are people kind of sheltering in place, trying to watch and see what happens as this unfolds? Are they afraid to possibly even go outside, leave their homes, thinking that this person is still out there?
Well, I could actually tell you from last night, a very large vigil was held in Orem for Charlie Kirk. Many individuals, this is one of the most conservative areas of Utah. Many individuals went to the hospital that he went to and held American flags as the procession passed. I think the general sentiment of many in Orem is that they would like to honor Charlie Kirk's life. I don't get the sense that they are maybe afraid to go outside at this point. But I'm sure some individuals are, checking their cameras, making sure, to take an extra look around. Many of the people on campus expressed that to me when we found out that the shooter was still on the loose. In fact, I was maybe 20, 30 feet away from a massive SWAT team that was going in to clear a building. And as I was on air, I heard in my ear that the shooter was still on the loose, and the person that had been taken into custody was just a person of interest, and they had been released. I actually heard that in my ear as I'm watching this, massive SWAT team go into a building. I have no problem admitting that even made me afraid in that moment. I think a lot of students, when that situation is so dynamic and realizing the shooter is still out there, that caused a lot of fear on the campus and in the surrounding community. But in the hours following and heading into the evening, many in the community came out to show their support for Charlie Kirk and his family, as this is one of the most conservative areas of Utah.
You mentioned, Spencer, about this suspect going into the woods there in Orem. Can you kind of give me the landscape? I don't want to make assumptions here, but I want you to kind of, give me a clearer picture of what the landscape is there. I've never been there, so it leads me to believe that this person had some familiarity with that region. Yeah,
and so one of the things, and this is something we are also kind of working through, is the phrase put out by the police department was a wooded area. And as you look around the campus, yes, there are wooded areas around kind of the northern edge, but pretty much on all sides except for its east side, which is right on Interstate 15, the main corridor in Utah. Not only the main corridor in Utah, but one of the main corridors in the United States. So this campus is right up against the freeway on one side. And then on the other side, it kind of extends up into the hills a little bit and goes into residential areas. Those residential areas kind of have wooded spaces in between them. It isn't exactly like woods, if that makes sense. So there's still a lot of population around this campus, but there are areas where this person allegedly, escaped to. We're not exactly sure the exact path, but we know the police that are investigating it do know the exact path. In fact, they've taken some shoe prints, and then, of course, as we've been reporting, recovered the weapon in an area. So they must have headed somewhere towards those residential neighborhoods, as that's kind of the only area where there's a wooded area to go. And then beyond that is just, for miles, actually, in pretty much every direction, is pretty populated. We live across something called the Wasatch Front. That's the main population center in Utah. And it extends all the way up to Salt Lake of solid population. Some areas a little bit more, some are a little bit less. But south is Provo, one of the big other centers in Utah, and that's only about 10 minutes away from Orem. So this is a very populated area. Just beyond the campus a little bit extends into some open space. And that seems to be what they're saying is this wooded area.
Yeah, I'm looking on the ground now through Google Earth, and you're absolutely right. Not a lot of wooded areas to begin with. Very populated. There's churches, for example. There's even the track and field that's a part of this area. Obviously, you have Veterans Memorial Highway, but you're right. A very populated area. So very little woods in a lot of areas where it appears, I'm not living there, but I'm looking, that I would assume people have surveillance systems. They have cameras on their homes, cameras on the buildings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly what the police are looking for right now. We have crews that are down there, and they're saying that the police are canvassing those neighborhoods. In fact, this morning during the latest update and latest press conference, they said they were going door to door. And I think that that will play back to a question a little bit earlier. I think that's going to play a big role in this person being caught.
Do you think, or do you even know, has there been any updates? I know they were able to recover that rifle. You mentioned it was in those woods, near those woods. Any indication of any more information that has come out, maybe that you have, that we haven't received yet? Or is this it, the surveillance pictures, and also that rifle has been recovered?
I hear a lot of rumors out there about things involving this particular weapon. A lot of it is very convoluted, and so I hesitate to put stock in any of those. There's a lot on social media going around about, you know, the weapon and the suspect and all of these things. At this point, it seems as if this is the information. This is the solid information that we have. I do want to mention one thing, and if we could go on to kind of slightly different topic.
Sure.
And I'm going to pull it up on my phone right now, if it will load. We do know Air Force 2 is en route to Salt Lake, and we're actually tracking that right now. And one thing that we were able to confirm just a little bit ago, yeah, Air Force 2 is just over Topeka, Kansas, as I'm looking on my phone. One thing we were able to confirm is Air Force 2 will be taking the body of Charlie Kirk back to Arizona. Just in the last few minutes, we've been able to confirm that. So Air Force 2 will land, I believe, looking like an hour to an hour and a half in Salt Lake. And then exactly what happens with the vice president, then we're not exactly sure. But that is going to be I'm sure something that we not only cover, but will be a big community interest, and many people will be outlining the roads, lining the procession route for Charlie Kirk.
And so we know Charlie Kirk, born and raised in our area, of course, but was he living in Arizona? To my understanding, I think he was living in Arizona. Is that correct, Spencer?
Yeah, that's correct. And then afterwards, we've gotten word that we believe Air Force 2 will take his body back to Arizona.
Okay. I want to ask you one other question, Spencer, before we let you go. You know, there was that video that showed someone being taken into custody. Turns out that is not the suspect. He had nothing to do with this. Obviously, he had to be questioned to make sure. Do you know where that man is from? And was he just there watching like everyone else?
I believe that is the case. I know we do have information on him in particular. In fact, one of our other reporters has been following this, so I'm going to just check really briefly to see if there's any updates on this. I believe, and this is one of those subject to change, but I do believe that was somebody that was just there, but was taken in for some reason, I'm not sure, as a person that they wanted to ask some questions of. And there also was a second suspect taken into custody, and we're still not sure about that as well. What was going on there? That's another one of those big questions that we have. Exactly what's going on with that second suspect, who they were, what that was about. Whether they were taken into custody on the campus either is another question. So those are things we're trying to work out actually right now on the ground. And I hope that we can bring you and your viewers an update in the coming hours and days.
Yeah, Spencer, you bring up a good point. I want to ask you, because it sounds like you have so many boots on the ground following this story. Just go with me quickly and give me some of the stories and angles that you're covering from your vantage point being there on the ground in Utah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're trying to chase down every single lead that we have. So we're talking to residents in the neighborhood, in that neighborhood that we're talking about, that you were asking questions about. We're out there right now. We're waiting for the latest update from police, from the Department of Public Safety, from the FBI. We're tracing down that. Obviously, we'll be covering the vice president and what happens there. We have a crew at the medical examiner's office. where we believe Charlie Kirk's body is, and the procession will then take it back to Air Force One, as well as just reaction across every side of the political sphere and the human sphere. Many of our lawmakers are reacting today. Many are angry. Many are very, very angry at this, as well as a lot of individuals that are. One of the things that we're exploring is how this will impact debates on campus, on college campuses. That was what Charlie Kirk was known best for, is going to colleges across America, and many disagreed with him. Many agreed with him, and sharing that political discourse was kind of his mission, and wanted people to ask him questions. They wanted to debate. They wanted to argue, and some people virulently disagreed with him. Some people agreed with him. And so we're trying to explore a little bit more of how that will impact political discourse, political engagement, political debate on college campuses moving forward.
Yeah, and really what they will look like if they do happen in the future. There was a talk online, and I don't know if you can confirm this or not, that Charlie Kirk was actually wearing a bulletproof vest. Had you heard any details about that at all?
Actually, I haven't heard that at all. Individuals that I spoke to just didn't say that it appeared to be that. That hasn't been something that was confirmed here by police. Individuals that were very, very close to the situation didn't appear to them as if he was. But then again, I'm not sure if he was or wasn't. That isn't something that's been confirmed one way or another. But I think that certainly can be a part of the question moving forward.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing, I think, about when we look at our country and things like this happen, one thing, at least on the journalistic front, is you have to sift through so much stuff that's not real, to really get to the truth, especially when it comes to tips coming in through social media. How are you navigating all of that? Because it really is hard to get to the truth in this digital age, in this age of AI. All of these are now factors.
It's really, and I can tell you on this story in particular, it's really, really tough. I'm thankful here at Fox 13 in Salt Lake, we have an incredible team that is doing their due diligence at every single step to make sure that we not only provide timely information, but accurate information, because the worst thing that we can do is take an internet rumor at face value. And I think in this particular story, that is frankly everywhere right now, on all social media platforms. And so we are asking questions of law enforcement as things come in. They are being at least receptive to some of those questions, even if they can't answer that information. We're working with some individuals that are analysts in law enforcement, maybe former law enforcement, former FBI. We have a lot of sources here that can help us, in a way, potentially debunk these internet rumors and things like that. But no, truly, yes. In this day and age, it is so incredibly important to make sure that we are accurate with our information, especially in a huge national and international story like this.
And especially considering how divisive people can be in really, our job now has become in some ways not to perpetuate hate and not to give those that want to push hate any more, I guess, essentially any more credit, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that is the hate that is happening online right now is one of the most disheartening things to several individuals in this community. And I think a lot of, even our governor said yesterday, if anyone is cheering this, they should take a look in the mirror, as well as, saying that they will find this suspect and bring them to justice. So I think that there's a lot of conversations happening around that today.
Right. You don't have to agree, but to celebrate a death of a father, of a husband, of someone that was trying to push whatever their message is. You don't have to agree with that. To celebrate them being killed is just unfathomable. Something that I can't even wrap my mind around. I can't even get the word out. It's just you just can't even fathom that someone would be okay with that. Spencer Joseph, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Truly, I think a lot of Utahns in particular, I could speak to Utahns and Americans as a whole. I think a lot of people are mourning as one, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right. Today is a day for mourning and to condemn political violence. Truly, there is no space, not only in the United States, but in the world for this form of political violence.
You're absolutely right. And those that push it, it is unfathomable. Okay, Spencer Joseph, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I know you're hard at work. I know you'll be following this along the way, and we'll be looking for any updates coming straight from Fox 13 right in Salt Lake City. Thank you so much for being with us on Chicago Live.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This is a story that we will continue to follow. Again, we are waiting on a press conference that is set to happen in about 20 minutes from the FBI, giving us an update on this case. We don't know exactly the details of what they will reveal, but of course, we will bring it to you here live. We do want to take a break, and then after that, we'll be going down on the ground in New York for a 9/11 remembrance ceremony that is already underway. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. 9/11 is definitely a day that we will never forget. You're taking a live look right now at Freedom Tower. This is where an interfaith remembrance service is going on the ground in New York. This is for the 84 Port Authority employees who lost their lives on September 11th of 2001. This event is held annually by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And during the service, they honor the memory of the fallen's employees and their families, reflecting on their service memory and legacy. Let's take a moment and listen in.
Alphonse J. Niedermeyer, David Ortiz, Pablo Ortiz, James W. Parham, Nancy E. Perez, Dominic A. Pizzullo, Eugene J. Raggio, Judith Reese, Bruce A. Reynolds, Francis S. Riccardelli, Antonio J. Rodriguez, Richard Rodriguez, James A. Ramiro, Kalyan K. Sarkar, Anthony Sabas, John P. Scala, Edward T. Strauss, Walwyn W. Stewart, Kenneth F. Tejan, Lisa L. Chorotola, Nathaniel Webb, Simon Weiser, Michael T. Holy, Louis A. Williams, John D. Giovanni, Robert Kirkpatrick, Stephen Knapp, William Mako, Wilfredo Mercado, Monica Rodriguez Smith and her unborn child.
So again, today is September 11th. We know that 2,996 people died on this day. This tragic event remains the deadliest terrorist attack in history, with the majority of those casualties occurring in New York City and the Pentagon. Again, we are looking at Freedom Center right now. Beautiful skyline there in New York. Somber day, but beautiful skyline. 77 degrees in New York City today. A very different view when you look at our cloudy skyline. And here to talk about the weather is Caitlin Cody. A lot of people excited about the weather, at least something we can celebrate considering all the somber stuff that we've been talking about. Yeah, very heavy, but nice to know that we can at least get outside and enjoy Chicago.
Yeah, nice weather. The summer feel is back again today. You saw from that shot, we have a few clouds out there, and it's fun because they're hanging right around the upper levels of these buildings where we have cameras, so it almost looks really dark and gray and dreary, but in reality, we actually have mostly sunny skies. It's going to be a really nice afternoon. Temperatures climbing to about 80 degrees. Look at this shot. This is a good way to see what the weather is, right?
When people are out there and enjoying it, and then you see people in shorts, that kind of tells you the story.
And the reflection in the bean.
Yes, beautiful. The sun.
Sun is bright. Yeah, 80 degrees today as mentioned. A little bit cooler near the lake. Tomorrow, though, 85, so it's going to be even warmer than today. And it will be dry, but Saturday we have the chance for rain. So especially the first part of the day until mid-afternoon, the potential for rain and a few rumbles of thunder, highs back to the upper 80s. 85 Sunday, Monday through Wednesday of next week, the mid-80s. So this summer feel continues on. We should be in the upper 70s. That's our normal high for today. Obviously well above that as we get into the weekend. I will say I've been looking at extended outlooks, though, and it appears as though as we get to next weekend or the following weekend, temperatures could be back down to that fall feel.
Oh, man.
So we are on whiplash here, absolutely. And unfortunately, you know, I was hoping, we're getting that fall temperature. Yeah. We can open the windows, get our air conditioning a break, get those bills down for the air conditioning. But
Say
this
that
week,
again.
We're ramping it back up again.
I like the feeling that fall is still right around the corner, though. So next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend.
Extended models are showing. Some cooler air is returning. But, you know, in Chicago, it's going to get cold. So if you want the cooler temperatures, which, you know, Terrence T. Lee, he's like, give me the cool temperature. I'm sweating out there right now. it's coming, and then you know what? It's going to be too cold. So as Tia mentioned, let's just enjoy this.
Yeah, let's enjoy it. We're enjoying it for now. We know that the snow, I hate to say it, but it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, just brace yourself. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, you can go outside early and late, and it's not too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know you want to get home and enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate you coming on and talking weather with us.
It's been a beautiful week.
Yeah, you're wearing a beautiful dress for the beautiful weather. We have a whole lot more coming up on Chicago Live. Stay with us, and we'll see you on the other side of this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We continue to follow as we learn more developments about the killing of Charlie Kirk. And we want to go to Jay Swidler. He is the head of the Vernon Township Republicans, covering the same area in which Kirk grew up. We know he graduated from Wheeling High School. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's talk about really your reaction to what happened. I know you put a statement out. Let's talk about what the community here at home is feeling after this.
Well, it's been a devastating 24 hours, as you can imagine. There's not a single person I know that I don't talk to, and they don't know exactly what happened and are being affected by it. A lot of people telling stories about how their kids were involved and were aware of Charlie and what kind of difference he made in their lives. And it's very touching. I'm very thankful that people had that opportunity. I did not get a chance to meet Charlie, but clearly just a giant of a man, way more influential than I think a lot of people, give him credit for.
We got some breaking news out of Salt Lake City at the top of the hour on this show, saying that Kirk's body will be taken to Arizona by Air Force Two. He was still currently living in Arizona, clearly from our area. Any indication that he still has roots in our area? Any family still living in our area?
I'm not sure about the family. I know that he was, when he started the program, Turning Point, many years ago, our prior chairman, Marko Sukovic, was deeply involved. He shared some pictures on Facebook as well of the early days of Turning Point. So it's very touching, very special pictures, and what they used to do and how they used to do it. So it just shows the ground floor nature of what Charlie did and how he really created this program and had a vision and executed this vision to be years later what it turned into, which is a monumental, organization in the movement.
Let's talk about political violence. We've seen, the assassination attempt of our president. We now have the situation with Charlie Kirk. We've seen it for Minnesota lawmakers as well. What is your reaction to people being so disagreeable that they take it to the level of violence?
Well, I think it starts with I dare say the rhetoric, because that's what the Democrats and the left like to say about Trump. But it really is when you're saying that you want to have the temperature down, you don't want to have the rhetoric, and then you have the J.B. Pritzkers of the world saying don't give them a moment's rest. We don't run anything in Illinois, yet we're the problem in Illinois. That seems strange to me. So between that, Maxine Waters get up in their face. When people used to go out to dinner, in Washington, D.C., you'd have people getting in their faces. So there's been a certain encouragement of this kind of behavior on the left. And it seems to be a prevailing issue with the far left part of the Democrat Party. So it's become the energy on the left to this fight, whatever the fight is, without any concrete ideas on what they're going to solve. So this is the problem that we're seeing right now.
Well, how do we reach a middle point, Jay? Because you would have the left say that about the right. You'll have the right say that about the left. And it keeps going. And there's really no true resolve here. How do we meet in the middle to where we're not really, keeping these feuds going to the point where people out there that are enraged take this way too far?
I take your point, and it's a fair question. But I do preface it where, when we have a disagreement with the Democrats, it's an ideological disagreement. We disagree with their policies. We disagree with what they want to do in the policy arena. The differences that with the left is that they call us fascists, and they call us Nazis, and they call anybody who supports Trump these different things. So I guess the question I would put to you is, if somebody thinks that somebody is Hitler or somebody is a Nazi, what wouldn't you do to stop them?
Here you're asking me that question, but that question isn't for me. I'm in the middle of this, staying truly neutral, and that's where I want to be. I don't want to be in the middle of this. What I do want to ask you, Jay, is what are you hearing in the community? What is the community feeling about this? I'm not trying to get political with you. My question is really about how do we create peace? Even if the left is doing this, even if the right is saying this, how do we create a culture of peace?
Well, it starts with people in power. And in general, in Illinois, you don't have Republicans in power. So you have Democrats in power. So it's up to them to kind of lead the way. They've been the one with the explosive rhetoric, again, calling people names that should not be called. It puts targets on people's back. So if that changed, I think that would be the beginning. I think that then we could see that there could be a start to that. If that doesn't change, I don't know how it changes. In Illinois, Republicans don't have power. So if people in power, the Pritzkers, the Brandon Johnsons, et cetera, in Illinois, don't tone down their rhetoric and work to create this broadening of communication, then there's really nothing that can be done, because Republicans don't have power to change it in Illinois. What we can do is do work. We can inform the public. This is what we do in Vernon Township all the time, is just inform the public about policies, about voting, about when things are going on. That's what we can do. So we don't really, the inflammatory stuff, you can have an individual here or there. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, of course. But from a structural standpoint, that has to change from the people in power. And the people in power in the state are the ones vilifying the ones who are not in power.
Jay, let me ask you this. Charlie Kirk was instrumental in really getting young people galvanized, getting young people together, no matter what side you were on, to have really heartfelt conversations about things like race, sexuality in our country, how those things are viewed. His absence now, what does the history of having those real conversations look like?
what a gift he was to do that, which is something that we all want to do. We all want to have conversations and not be just calling people's names or closing their ears or running away from conversations. And he was able to do this, and he did it. He was the happy warrior. He was doing it with a smile. He was doing it in an informative way, very well read on all the facts, on all the information, whether it be from biblical information, whether it be from political information, historical. Just an incredible mind that he was, and for him to feel so strongly about going to the college campuses and continuing this work, because he did have this massive influence on Gen X or Gen Z, whatever it is, and they really understood where he was coming from. And it was just such a beautiful thing to see. And you love seeing it when he would have those conversations. There are other people having those conversations. The problem now comes down to things like security. And will it be safe to have those conversations? Because you have to have those conversations on college campuses.
You do.
And the problem that we saw for a number of years is that you weren't allowed to have those conversations on the campuses. The administration on the college campuses basically said, no, we don't want to have those conversations here. They're dangerous. Again, dangerous rhetoric. That's what it was always called. You're having a conversation with people, and it's called dangerous rhetoric. That's the problem that I see. And until that is encouraged on college campuses and open thought and discussion and dialogue, that will continue to be an issue regardless.
Have you heard of any events that will take place across our area, maybe anything in your township, to kind of remember the life of Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything yet. I'm guessing in the next few days we'll start to see some things gel. And certainly Vernon Township would love to be a part of something like that, or we might come up with something. So,
Jay, I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the conversation that we had. I appreciate the respect that we had for one another, and I really enjoyed your point of view. And again, want to make sure that people understand I am in the middle. I don't have any leaning either way here. I just wanted to have a conversation with you. So I appreciate you being open to us just having a conversation about something that is so polarizing in our community. I do want to bring up this. So Jay, thank you for your time. I do want to bring up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We hope to talk to you soon. I do want to bring up the fact about this because I think some people may have this a little confused. There was supposed to be a prayer vigil in honor of Charlie Kirk in Lamont. That was where he had his first office. That has been postponed. It will happen at some point, but the organizers wanted to make sure that the community at large knows that that event has been postponed until a later date. They have to work out traffic, streets, etc., and security for that event, but it will happen at a later date. Stay with us right here on Chicago Live. We have much more coming up right after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We were expecting a press conference from the FBI at 1:45 with an update about the killing of Charlie Kirk and maybe what they've uncovered. We have been told that it has been postponed because of, quote, rapid developments. Of course, we'll continue to monitor to see when that press conference will happen. I want to bring in Dr. Lindsay Hayes from NASA because a rock has been found on Mars that could be evidence of ancient life. Dr. Hayes, are you there?
I am. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you just fine. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's talk about this. What does that mean?
Yeah, so last year, our Perseverance rover is operating on Mars right now. And last July, there was a big announcement that we found this really interesting rock that was on Mars. And when we saw it, we immediately knew that there was something really interesting about it. And there were spots on this rock, and we were thinking that potentially this was made by ancient life operating on Mars. And this is perhaps the closest we've ever seen to discovering life on Mars. And yesterday was the publication of the peer-reviewed paper about this potential biosignature. And so that's a really exciting thing, right? That's the next step in this science process. We find something interesting. We'll tell people that we find something interesting, but then we looked at the area around us and we looked at the potential other formations for something like this, and we're very excited. And so the publication is out there for the science community to take a look at now.
You know, this is one of those conversations where I think if you're into science, your antennas go up. You have so many questions. I do. So let me start with this biosignature. Break that
Absolutely.
down for the average person that's never taken a biology class, that has no idea what that means.
Certainly. So a biosignature, right, if you break it down into the two pieces, bio meaning life, signature is a sign. And so when we talk about this as a potential biosignature, that means it's a characteristic or an element or a molecule, some kind of a feature that may have a biological origin. But we want to, because it's a potential biosignature, we want to look at it a bit more. We need more data, or we need further study to be able to say conclusively, like, this absolutely was created by life. A biosignature, of course, also cannot be created by a process that is not life. And so this is where we're in the process, right? We found something, it could be a biosignature, and we're trying to figure out where we go next from there.
So are we saying that, okay, so let me break this down because I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. Okay. So are we saying,
let's talk more.
Are we saying that, evidence of, okay, follow me here, doctor. I'm not as smart as you. Are we saying that dust was found, lint from clothing? What exactly was found that proves that life exists on Mars or existed?
Right. So good point. We're not talking about life that's on Mars today, right? We're talking about past life on Mars. And what this feature that we found, it's not a fossil. Don't think, a dinosaur bone or something like that. We're talking about what we call, think of it more like a trace fossil. It's more like a footstep or something like somebody's lunch, right? This is a leftover lunch and maybe some scat or something that was released after eating that lunch. That's the kind of thing we're seeing. We're seeing evidence that microbes, so tiny little things, were on the surface of Mars potentially. We're consuming the chemicals in the environment around them and releasing byproducts, let's say.
Got it. So we don't know if this was, because the first thing that the average person thinks of, aliens. We're not saying that. We're saying this could be something as simple as a form of an insect or something to that degree.
Something even simpler than that, right? Something that is like, something like pond scum, something that lives in the oceans or something like that. We're talking about microbial life, so something really, really simple. We're talking about a rock that is 3.5 billion years old, so really, really old. And for comparison, on our planet at 3.5 billion years ago is where we see some of the earliest traces that we feel confident are life on our planet. So even if we'd find something like this on our planet, we would be really excited about finding it. But finding it on Mars at the same time that life was, sort of getting going here on our planet, far before there was any sort of multicellular life, even insects, even things like that, is a really exciting finding.
How big is this rock? How big are we talking here?
Yeah, so the rock itself is about, 1.5 feet by 3 feet. So, a decent sized rock. But the features that we're talking about are really small. So they're like less than a centimeter, like half an inch or smaller. Small features. This is why we're calling them poppy seeds and leopard spots, because they're not large features. They're pretty small.
Okay, I was looking up to see by what you said, 1.5 by 3 feet. What could that be compared to? So our viewers can kind of get that in their mind. So that's the equivalent to like a small coffee table is what.
Sure. I would, I'm a baseball fan. Let's say it's close to home plate, right? Something of that scale.
Okay.
Small.
Got it. Okay. What happens next in really, getting down to the nitty gritty to determine exactly what this life is?
Absolutely. So one of the big steps that's happened between last year and this year, right, is that the science team for this mission were able to see a little bit more about the rocks nearby, so they have context. So they know what formed, what other rocks formed around the same time that these features were forming. The other thing that happened is that they did a search of what other scientists have already published, so what we know may also cause it. And so they were able to rule out some potential options about processes that don't involve life that may have caused this feature. The next step, and where we are now, is that this is open for the broader science community around the world and within the US to be able to find other potential ways. Hey, I think we can make that feature by doing this other thing or this other chemical process or something like that. And so that's where we are, right? We're at this process where the broader science community can look at it and either agree or refute, support or refute what we see here. Or what was published in this paper. And then hopefully, eventually, these samples may be returned to Earth and we'd be able to really pull them into some of our best labs here on planet Earth and look at them with all kinds of instruments, some of which may not have even been invented yet, and really interrogate this rock, really understand what was going on when this rock was being formed.
Our producer was admiring your Mars poster that is behind you and was asking, what is it? What else is on that poster behind you?
This one here?
Let me see. Pull up the other one. The one that is right behind you, he said.
Oh, this one here. This one here. Yeah, so we have, we like to remind folks that, our exploration of Mars is not just a new thing. This is one of our sort of classic travel poster series. And this one here has actually 2 people standing on Mars and sort of viewing the valleys and everything like that, and a rocket, I guess, leaving them there on Mars.
I know you weren't expecting
Mars
that question.
exploration is something that NASA's been working on for 60 years.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of people thinking about what we can do robotically at Mars, what we can do with people at Mars in the future, and so it's really a thing. This discovery, for example, is just one in a series of fantastic things we have done around Mars and on Mars as we've been exploring the red planet.
Well, let me know if NASA wants to sign somebody up to go to Mars for a quick trip. All right, let me ask you another question. This one is a little off topic. There's been a lot of memes out there about this secret moon base, the dark side of the moon. What do you make of it?
I'll say this. We have been working really hard at NASA to sort of establish a long-term presence on the moon. And, right now we are thinking about, with our Artemis missions, how we get to the moon, how we work on the moon and all of that. So, as we're moving forward, we like to celebrate every step along the way. So in terms of a secret something, definitely not. But in terms of a, follow along as we do more things, I really hope you all and your audience can do that.
Yeah, I'm so interested in everything that you've had to say. I wish I was smart enough to work at NASA. Dr. Lindsay Hayes from NASA, I love that. It was easy to talk to you, very easy conversation. Sometimes you talk to people from the science community and you don't know which way it's going to go. It's been a really great conversation to have. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, this kind of stuff I find so exciting, and I love being able to talk with anybody else who shares my excitement about it. So yeah. I'm very happy to be able to speak with you today.
Very exciting, very good conversation. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care of yourself. Have a great rest of your day, Dr. Hayes.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you. We're going to roll into the next hour of Chicago Live. We have a break, and then Brian Jackson will continue our coverage from there. Again, we are waiting to see if the FBI holds their press conference. It has been postponed due to rapid developments. Of course, this is a story that we will continue to follow with the updates on the killing of Charlie Kirk. We'll be right back.
All right, time is now 2:02. Welcome back to Chicago Live on this Thursday. I'm Brian Jackson, joining you so far. Want to get you updated on the Chicago River. Not only will you soon be able to swim in the river, it's a lot cleaner than it used to be, and now there is an international award to prove it. We are rejoined by Margaret Frisbee, who's joining the show. Once again, she is the executive director of the Friends of the Chicago River. Thanks so much for being here.
Brian, thank you so much for having me back.
Of course. So what do you say it means for Friends of the Chicago River to win such a prestigious international award? Give us some background on what exactly this award is and why it was given to you guys for the Chicago River.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for congratulating us, for discussing it with us. This is the Tees International River Prize that's awarded by the International River Symposium, which is an organization that is an event that takes place in Brisbane, Australia every 2 years. And it's put on by the International River Foundation, which is an international organization with hundreds and hundreds of members from all around the world. And what they're looking at is river resilience, river recovery, how people are managing their rivers, and frankly, looking at how rivers can be core to the community. And so Friends of the Chicago River was recognized by them as a leader in this work. So, you know, the work that we've done to improve water quality, to improve fish habitat, people, you know, habitat for people, to get people out on the water, just so many things. And we couldn't be more thrilled and honored.
Can you take us a little bit behind the scenes a little deeper into how some of that work came to be when you mentioned kind of improving the species in the river? Are we talking literally introducing new species to the river and cleaning it? Could you just share some more details on that?
Absolutely. So really, you know, improving a river is an iterative process. It takes years, it takes decades, it takes coordination with government, with, you know, corporations supporting us, with volunteers, with public support. And we started with a river that was designed into our sewer system 125 years ago. So we reversed the Chicago River so it flows backwards down to the Gulf of Mexico. And what we put sewage in the river every day. When Friends was founded, in fact, Brian, on average, there was sewage in the river every 3 days. So today what we have is a much healthier river, and it was step by step. First, we worked to eliminate the sewage in the river. So that included working with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, who's done a terrific job with the tunnel and reservoir plan. And so now at least 85% of all sewage overflows have stopped. So now it's really rare to end up with sewage in the river. So once you have sewage out of the river, you can start to look at fish habitat and public access, and working with the Chicago Park District on public access. So canoe and kayak launches and riverfront parks that we didn't used to have. We've worked with Glenview, we've worked with Riverdale, we've worked with Cicero, all on looking at, how we're managing stormwater, whether we're creating habitat, are we building and connecting trails. And so step by step, we have created a river system that the water's cleaner, the access is better, and we're investing in wildlife habitat, and that allows species to come back and to thrive.
And Margaret, you often describe the Chicago River as what you call a natural wonder. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, people are used to thinking of, the Rocky Mountains or, the Pacific Ocean as natural assets, natural wonders. But the fact is every single river and every single city around the world is also a natural wonder. And that's what this Tees International River Prize is recognizing, is that these rivers are as important natural resources as any other natural area, whether or not it's been abused in urbanization or it's pristine in the Canadian wilderness. And so to me, it's the fact that we get to enjoy, and the third largest population center in the United States with millions of people, working downtown, going out on weekends to enjoy this waterway. I think that's really a marvel. And the fact that we've gone from less than 10 species of fish to nearly 80, and there's more abundancy of fish as well as species, it is just astounding.
And this award also comes with a cash prize. What is that cash prize, and how would that money be used to further your mission?
So the cash prize is 100,000 Australian dollars, which for Friends of the Chicago River is a significant gift. It's a great shot in the arm. And frankly, what we do with that kind of money is invest in the policy work, the long-term, difficult, challenging work that takes year after year after year, dam removal, water quality, public access, connecting trails, that can, restoring rivers, healing rivers cannot happen in a year. It sometimes takes decades to get a project done. And this kind of work, both the award itself and the financial support, makes that work possible so Friends can carry on our mission.
And we just had a question coming in from our producer, Jim. I think it was last week. We found nearly 100 cars in the Chicago River. Do you have any updates on what else could have been found over the last week or since the last time we spoke with you?
Yeah, I don't have an update on those cars, but again, I will tell you that's symbolic of that old Chicago River, the river that nobody cared about. And one of the great prides that Friends of the Chicago River staff and volunteers and our board and our supporters, what we know is that river is not the river that we have now. And that people love this Chicago River, and they're going to support it, and they're going to continue to stand with us and never let it be polluted like that ever again.
So Chicago is being kind of looked at being recognized globally for restoring the river. I spent a lot of time living in Washington, D.C. I feel like the Potomac River there had a similar reputation to what the Chicago River used to be here. What do you think that maybe the folks in D.C. could learn from some of the work that you guys have done?
Well, I think there's great efforts underway in pretty much every American city, and frankly, as we've gotten to know the international river community around the world. So I think we all learn from each other, but importantly, I think it's really this balance of working with government, working with agencies that impact the waterways. So whether it's the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District or the Forest Preserves of Cook County or Lake County, but also our elected officials, bringing in volunteers and really creating a synthesis between the partners that we work with. We work with the Sierra Club all of the time, Environmental Law and Policy Center all of the time. Great partners, great government support, and really being honest and transparent about what our goals are. And I think generally we will always find that we can align around making our rivers healthier for everybody.
And looking ahead, what would you say is maybe the biggest challenge still facing the Chicago-Calumet River system in the years to come?
Well, one of the things that we do find to be a challenge is that a lot of people still don't really recognize how healthy the river is. So when something happens like the Chicago River Swim happening next Sunday, people, they denigrate the river, they make jokes about it. And really, this is a river that has recovered so far. And so what we want is people to know and see that this river is really, really a wonderful resource and that it needs their help. So there's still runoff stormwater pollution. You can get motor oil, chloride, road salt, which, damages the water, hurts the plants, hurts the fish. And, lack of habitat. Habitat is fragmented. The trail system for humans is fragmented. Not every community along the river has access to the river. And so we need to work on equitable access. And that's why we need the public to know and hear about the work that we do, and that's why awards are so important, because that helps elevate the conversation, and then we can address these issues and carry on and really make this river special for everybody.
All right, Margaret, looking forward to what is to come for the Chicago River. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Brian. See you next time.
All right, time is now 2:10. We'll be right back here on Chicago Live. All right, welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 2:15. We have been following the latest on the death of Charlie Kirk. We know that the FBI is looking for a suspect. We also have an update on a vigil. We do know that Charlie Kirk was from the suburbs here in Chicagoland. We've just learned that a vigil will be taking place on September the 14th. It's going to happen at noon at the North School Park in Arlington Heights. Again, we're just getting that information in. That vigil for Charlie Kirk, who of course grew up here in the Chicagoland area, is going to take place again on September the 14th. It's going to happen at noon at the North School Park located in Arlington Heights. We're going to continue to bring you more information. We also are expecting an update from the FBI on their search for the shooter in the case of Charlie Kirk. Again, that shooting happened yesterday afternoon, about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake City in the state of Utah. For now, though, we're going to check in on our look at our stocks so far. It looks like we're having a pretty good day as far as NASDAQ as we get a chance to bring up the big board this afternoon. Looking at the New York Stock Exchange, up about 595 points so far. So good news for all investors and people who have their money involved in the stock market. All right, time's now 2:16. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back here on Chicago Live. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We just learned that USC just hit its largest enrollment ever. We're going to be getting a little bit more perspective on what exactly is driving that growth this Thursday afternoon. We are joined by Keely Fletcher, the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at USC. Did I get your first name right?
You did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with what is driving this record growth at USC?
Well, that's a great question. Again, we did see historic growth this year. Our total population grew by 5.8%, so nearly 6% growth from our total population last year. Where we are really seeing the growth coming from is in our undergraduate student population. So our incoming student population grew by 1,300 students this year, so nearly a 20% increase in our incoming student population. But we also grew our continuing students, so the students who we were able to retain in college here at UIC also grew by about 500 students, or nearly 4% year over year. So again, the bulk of the growth was coming from our incoming class, and there's a few reasons that we're seeing for that. One, this year happens to be the largest high school graduating class in history. So that helps, actually, from a demographic perspective. But also, we're seeing a lot of students who have opted in to a new financial aid program that we launched here at UIC for this fall semester called the UIC Aspire Grant. It is a full commitment program for tuition and fees coverage for students in Illinois whose families make less than $75,000 a year. We enrolled nearly 3,500 students under that program this year in our incoming class. So we think the demographics, as well as some new financial aid programs that we offered here at UIC, has really helped drive that growth for us.
And you mentioned that new Aspire growth. What do you think that this means for not just, I guess, the future of UIC and getting more kids enrolled, but also for our work pool and access to, I guess, students who have graduated and kind of matriculated through UIC for this program maybe 5-10 years down the line? What do you think this will mean for maybe improving the talent pool for, I guess, job recruiters here across the city of Chicago?
That's really our ultimate goal. Here in my unit, the Student Enrollment Management at UIC, we like to say we don't enroll students, we enroll graduates. Our whole goal here is social mobility for our students. And it's one of the things that we're most proud of in terms of our college ranking. We are ranked number 10 in the country as it relates to social mobility of any institution of higher education. What that means is that we take families who are either first generation or from low income backgrounds, and we change their social mobility factor. So we move them in to those types of jobs that employers are seeking here in Chicago. So that is our ultimate goal. And so the fact that we were able to enroll nearly 50% of our incoming class under the UIC Aspire program, which is primarily targeted towards that low-income family in Illinois, we hope that that would bring a larger employment base of college graduates to our Chicago employers and to employers all throughout the state of Illinois.
I love that you mentioned those first-generation college students. It can be a big task, and you don't really have family members who've kind of gone through the process of making that transition from high school to college. So what kind of programs have you guys put in place just to make sure that they succeed and eventually do reach that graduation stage?
That's a great question. About 46% of our incoming class are actually first-generation students. So we have a lot of first-generation students here at UIC, and it is our mission to provide access to those students who are in that circumstance, because you're right, without having a family member, a close family member, like a parent who's gone through the higher education system, it can be very challenging. It's a very confusing process, from filling out your admissions application, those financial aid forms, which the last few years have not been the easiest to fill out. All of that transition can be really difficult. So we, here in Enrollment Management, we partner very closely with our Offices of Student Success and Belonging that provide programs in terms of onboarding students through the enrollment process. We bring students from Chicago Public Schools and the Noble School Networks here to campus to assist with our placement assessments for course scheduling purposes. So throughout the entire process, from application all the way through the summer, through orientation, through scheduling your courses, we offer all of our students kind of a hand-holding experience so that they're not confused or they're not lost on the process, specifically because we have so many of our students who this is their first time going through this process.
Definitely good to be able to kind of help lead them through this transition from high school to college. You mentioned that this is the largest, I guess, high school graduating class ever. What are you finding in terms of what they're interested in terms of majors? Has that changed or maybe surprised you in any way?
So over the past few years, we definitely have seen a shift in terms of student interest with regard to majors. So a lot of our growth this year has come from our College of Nursing. Our College of Nursing grew by 30% this year. So the health professions programs are definitely of high interest to students. Also, some of the other programs that have historically been attracted to our students, engineering, and in particular our College of Business. Our College of Business also has experienced double-digit growth this year as well. Those seem to be the programs that are attracting students. So we're seeing students, their interest really going towards health professions, as well as business and engineering. So those are where we are seeing students flock to when it comes to the application process and what colleges they wish to enroll in.
And we also know that some kids, they don't go straight from high school to a 4-year program right away. Sometimes they go through the community college route. You guys are also seeing a jump in transfer students. Any reason behind that, you believe?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we actually have this is the largest incoming transfer population we've ever had at UIC, over 2,500 students. That's a 15% increase from last year to this year. We have really strong partnerships with our community college partners, specifically with the City Colleges of Chicago. We are one of the largest feeders for City Colleges of Chicago into a 4-year degree. We are very closely connected to City Colleges. We actually are building out a Roadmap 2.0. That roadmap would be a direct line for students who go from Chicago Public Schools to the City Colleges and then to UIC, so that students know very early in their high school career exactly what courses they would need to take so that they don't lose any transfer credits when they come to us. We're also trying to build kind of a one UIC concept so that students, if they stop out for a little bit, they need to take some time, they know that they're still a UIC student and that we want them to come back. So building those pathways is really critical for us to provide transparency to students who are transferring in, as well as building those community partnerships with our community college partners and city colleges. So we think some of that work that we've been doing over the past 3 years has really led to this particular success. We still have room to grow. Transfer is still one of those areas of opportunities for us. We're very passionate about our commitment to community colleges here, not just city colleges, but also College of DuPage and some of the other colleges around our collar counties. So we hope to see more growth from this pool in the future.
And Kelly, I love that you mentioned growth. With enrollment now at an all-time high, what's next for UIC to keep this momentum going?
Well, thank you for using the word momentum. That's what we feel. We feel that we got some momentum right now. I will say one thing, we do have some headwinds coming our way with regard to demographics. So while this was the largest high school class in history, this upcoming high school class is going to be one of the smallest. In fact, the state of Illinois is expecting between now and 2041 an enrollment, what they call a demographic cliff or enrollment cliff, a decline of about 32% in terms of eligible high school graduates. That's the second largest in the country. We're second behind Hawaii in terms of that. That's not necessarily a place that we really want to be. So we are looking into all different types of enrollment pathways for students. We are looking into those students who maybe have come to college, tried it for a semester or two, said it wasn't for them, see if maybe they would like to come back. That is one area of opportunity. Looking at our adult learner population out in the city of Chicago. So those who would like to fine-tune their skills, perhaps come back and do a business completion degree in our College of Business Administration. So those are some of the avenues that we're looking for in terms of building different pathways to higher education, especially with in mind that this demographic change is occurring as soon as this year.
And Keely, if we have maybe some parents or even some high school students watching, what's the best way that they can get information if they're thinking about applying to UIC or maybe even coming on campus for a visit?
Oh, we love it when students come to campus. That is one of our favorite things. One of the events that we're most excited about, we still host quite a few on-campus events. This upcoming Saturday, September 20th, we are hosting what we call our Spark Fest. That is UIC's open house. That's when we open the campus to everyone. Right now, we have about 3,000 students and families registered to visit us that day, and we'd really love for you to come to that. So you can check out our Spark Fest website if you're interested to come into UIC that day, to pop in, see what we have going on. We're going to have live music in the quad. All of our colleges will be there representing their programs. We'll even have some of our graduate and professional programs there, if that's something that your students and your family might be interested in seeing. So that's one way that students and families can come get to know us at UIC, is by coming to Spark Fest on September 20th. Otherwise, I would encourage you to visit our admissions website. And also, for those of you who think you might be Aspire eligible, view our Aspire website, which is free.uic.edu.
All right, Keely Fletcher, the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at USC, doing some great things, enrolling their highest number of students in the school's history. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. All right, your time is now 2:28 on this Thursday edition of Chicago Live. So today is September the 11th, and we mark 24 years since that tragedy took place in New York City, as well as Washington, D.C., and as well as Pennsylvania as well. So we take a live look at one of the towers in New York City, in Manhattan there. We're now joined by Garry McCarthy, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the NYC Police during 9/11. Thanks so much for your time.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing all right. So, Garry, take us back to that morning. Where were you when that first plane hit?
The first plane hit right before of the George Washington Bridge. And as I entered the bridge, my cell phone rang. It was my secretary telling me that a plane had just hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And as I pulled on, I saw that iconic picture of the hole in the side of the North Tower with the smoke trailing off to the east. And initially I thought, wow, how, it's a clear day. How could that have happened? And actually before it, a couple of months before it, there was a Yankee pitcher named Corey Lytle who accidentally flew a plane into a building in Manhattan. And that's the first thing I thought of. And I said, that hole is way too big to be a Cessna or a small plane like that. So that was the first thing.
And what was your reaction when you later learned that this wasn't just an accident, that our country was actually under attack?
Well, so the way it played out was, I initially was not going to go to the scene. There's the saying, everybody has to touch the plane. Everybody wants to run to the scene and figure out what to do. I was actually going to go to my office at police headquarters, which is only about 4 blocks away. And I determined that I was going to go to the scene instead because it just wasn't making sense. And I arrived at the scene pretty much about 200 yards away when the second plane hit the South Tower. And I got to tell you something, and it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. Over the radio, a police officer put over the air, Central, be advised, the second plane just hit the South Tower. Notify the military, we're under attack. We need air cover. And I remember just looking at the radio and looking at my driver, like, how do we get in touch with the military? I'm number 3 in the NYPD, and I don't know how to do that. And it was at that precise moment that I realized that we had quite a problem, quite an issue going on.
And you were there in that moment and realized that there was a problem. I guess walk me through, what was it like there on the ground when the towers actually came down to the ground?
Well, it took a while for that to occur. And I actually set up a command post that Mayor Giuliani, police commissioner, fire commissioner, all the heads of all the agencies in the city kind of came to, which was at 75 Barclay Street, which was basically a half a block north of the North Tower. I recognized the potential for collapse, but I didn't realize that it could be, I think it was 22 acres worth of debris after both buildings came down. The mayor was on the phone with the vice president about 10 feet away from me in an office off the main part of this larger office where we set up this command post. And, the lights went out, the room filled up with smoke, and there was this sound. It was like cha-chunk, 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 and a roar. And it just kind of went on for, I don't even know how long, probably 2 or 3 minutes. And I didn't know what it was, but it turned out that was the North Tower falling on top of the building that we were in. So at that point, once it stopped, we realized that the entrances were blocked and we couldn't get out of that building. I don't know how long it went on for, quite frankly, but eventually I found a way out onto the backside of the building. And when we got out to the street, well, actually, the ironic part was I found a way out and I came back in to tell my partner, Joe Esposito, who was the chief of department at the time, who died from 9/11 cancer last year. I said, Joe, I got a way out. And he said to me, hold on, Garry. He says, are we better off outside or inside? And I said, oh, I don't know, Joe. I have no idea. But, we got to get outside and take charge of what's going on. And he said, okay. He said, but let's go back inside and make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind, which was typical Joe Esposito. And I was like, but we could go out. Oh, damn it. Okay, let's go. And we went back in and we got a couple more people out. When we hit the street, it was chaos. People were running all over the place. And as we got to Broadway, we were trying to decide where to go because we didn't think we could go to police headquarters because we figured that was a target. The second building came down. And I watched it from about 2 blocks away, kind of transfixed on Broadway. And I got to tell you, it was a magnificent sight, as terrible as it was. And Espo looked at me and said, Garry, we just lost a lot of people. And all of a sudden we realized that we had to get out of the way because it was coming at us like a tornado. And we ducked into the lobby of a building with a couple of our staff people. And we got stuck in there for a few minutes. It took us a little while to get out. And eventually, Espo and I decided that we were going to go to City Hall Park, which was a fenced-in perimeter, and we were going to start from there. We were going to bring in what's known as field command posts. They're basically communication buses, and get some heavy weapons because we realized that we were at war, and we were thinking about what was going to happen next. Were they going to come up out of the subways with AK-47s and start shooting people? And it turns out that in the middle of that, when we had no communications, somehow the first deputy commissioner, Joe Dunn, who outranked myself and Joe Esposito, had gotten back to police headquarters and evacuated the building. And he called us and he said, come on, we're going to start from here. And we had a 3-way argument that going back to police headquarters was suicide because we didn't know what was going on. And we fully expected there was going to be a secondary attack somehow. And eventually Joe Dunn, who happens to be a big, strapping, tough guy, basically kind of hollered at us a little bit. There might have been some F-bombs thrown in the middle of it, basically directing us and ordering us into headquarters, which we naturally followed direction, full well cognizant that it could have been the stupidest thing that we ever did in our lives. But, leadership does silly things sometimes at times of crisis like that. And, it was showing a lot of leadership to do that. And Joe Esposito and I walked over to headquarters and we started from there. By 2 in the afternoon, I had gone back to the scene because we didn't have communications and I was reporting back what was going on. So it was a very, very long day, but the day was nothing compared to the aftermath, the recovering the bodies, dealing with the families of the 23 officers that we lost, and securing New York City and the site and everything else. 3 funerals in one day. Families would have memorial services because they had given up hope of finding their loved ones, and then we would find a bone fragment and the DNA would identify one of our officers, and now we had a funeral that we went to. So it was a pretty tough time, but here's what I want to get across, if you guys can still hear me. When I think back 24 years ago, I feel like we actually had a United States of America. And today, especially based upon the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I feel that the divide in this country is as great as it ever was, even going back to the Civil War. I don't think that it needs to be like that. I think we've got to do better.
Garry, that was a powerful testimony that you just gave us, a firsthand account of what happened 24 years ago today in New York City. I do want to ask you, looking back, what lessons did you take from that day that maybe still guides you today?
I'm always been a wise guy, so forgive me for this. Keep a pair of boots in my truck at all times, because I was wearing a suit and I didn't have a change of clothes for 5 days. Don't park so close to the scene. Like I said, I recognized the potential for collapse, but I didn't think that it was going to be as large as it was. The thing that the NYPD did correctly, and nobody recognizes this, but history should, is that we had mobilization drills where if there was a critical incident that occurs, you could mobilize everybody in one borough, or you could mobilize everybody in 2 boroughs, or 3 or 4, or you could have a citywide mobilization. And we had practiced these mobilizations, and it paid off in spades on 9/11, because when I went back out to the scene after a couple of hours, as I walked around the 22 acres, and by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell a story. If you recall, George Bush, a couple of days after 9/11, gave a speech to the country, and he held up an officer's shield. That was Police Officer Howard. I recovered his body. I accidentally stepped on him. And it turns out that I had worked with his brother, who was an NYPD guy, when I went back out to the scene. But as I walked around the scene, and by the way, to Bush's credit, he had stayed in touch with Patty Howard's mom till the day she died a couple of years ago, and really, really lived up to his promises to her and her family. As I went around the scene, I found the mobilization points, and what was happening was officers were coming in, reporting in, getting put on rosters so we knew who was there, and directed out to different locations with intelligent direction of what to do. And that was executed extremely well, to the point that by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we knew that we were missing 22 police officers, which is pretty incredible considering that we had a couple of thousand there at the time. And the only reason that we didn't realize that we were missing a 23rd was there was an officer named Perry who had decided to go to law school and was resigning from the department, went to police headquarters to resign. When he heard about the attack, he went to the scene to help, off duty, obviously, and he died in the second collapse of the North Tower, came down sick. So train, drill, prepare for the unexpected, have your equipment ready to go, and maybe sometimes don't walk so close.
Garry, on this anniversary, 24 years later, what message do you want people at home to remember about 9/11?
It doesn't go away. Every year, I do a roll call with my friends who survived with me. And we mark every one of the 23 officers present. And I want everybody to realize that we've lost hundreds since then from 9/11 related cancers, particularly my partner, Joe Esposito, the chief of the department.
Garry McCarthy, you've been very gracious with your time, and you've provided some tremendous perspective as we look back 24 years following 9/11. Thanks so much for your time.
Can I suggest that we also look forward? Because what's happening today has got to change.
We can for sure. And thanks so much for your time, Garry. And also remember, you can always watch Wearing the Badge, hosted by former Chicago Police Superintendent Garry McCarthy, right here on Fox Local. All right, our time is now 2:43. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on Chicago Live. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Brian Jackson here with you on this Thursday afternoon. Time is now 2:46. We're going to bring in former FBI agent Ross Rice. He's going to be able to provide a little bit of perspective as the search continues for the gunman who shot and killed Charlie Kirk yesterday afternoon in Utah. Thanks so much for your time, Ross.
My pleasure, Brian.
So earlier this afternoon, the FBI released a still photo of, I guess, a person of interest that they believe that they want to talk to in this case. Walk us through, from an FBI perspective, what happens next in that process? And also, what led them to release that image? What did they need to know in order to feel comfortable putting that image out there for all of us to see?
Well, the first thing they did yesterday was determine where the fatal gunshot was fired from. It was a rooftop on the campus, apparently about 200 yards away. And they processed that area as a crime scene. And from there, I'm not sure if they did it through witness accounts or just through officers doing routine investigation. They determined what would have been the most logical means of escape from that position. It was a rooftop location. I don't know how high it was, but in any event, they followed what they thought would have been the presumed route of escape. There were video cameras on the campus. They reviewed the recordings from those cameras. They saw the image of the individual. Apparently, he was the only individual, at least would be my guess, that was in that area at that time. And they also discovered a weapon, a rifle, bolt-action rifle, in the woods somewhere near where they thought this suspect fled. So it's pretty obviously to me that they're calling him a person of interest. I think he's clearly the suspect in this investigation. They've issued a $100,000 reward, the FBI has, for information leading to the identification of this person. And I think it's just a matter of time before he's located and apprehended.
Ross, you mentioned that weapon that was found in the woods, the weapon that is believed to be possibly used in the shooting and killing of of Charlie Kirk yesterday afternoon. Do you find it surprising that somebody who potentially carried out this attack just kind of left that weapon laying around and didn't take it with them?
Yeah, I do. I find it highly unusual. If you look at the video images that have been released, assuming this is the shooter, he took steps to conceal his identity. He was wearing a baseball cap, he wore sunglasses, he had fairly nondescript dark clothing, long sleeves. I wouldn't be surprised if he had or used gloves of some sort to prevent leaving fingerprints. But so there obviously was preparation on his part in advance of this shooting. I'm sure he had scoped out the location. He was able to find a vantage point from which he might have a clear view and a clear shot of Mr. Kirk. But then to turn around and leave the weapon, that's going to offer investigators a treasure trove of clues. Who purchased it, the transfer history of the weapon. Obviously, the key tell will be if the bullet recovered from the victim's body matches that weapon, and that'll be done through a ballistic examination. But there could also be fingerprints, DNA, a number of other items of evidence that could help lead to the identification and arrest of this individual.
Ross, what are some of the challenges of gathering evidence? This event happened at a large outdoor space. We're talking about thousands of people were present there, and we're also on a college campus. So how do those aspects maybe affect or impact the scale of this investigation?
Well, I'm not sure that it did, Brian. If you look at the location from which the shooter is believed to have fired the fatal shot, he was alone. He was isolated. He was by himself. So there were no actual eyewitnesses that I'm aware of to the shooting. So he's going to be linked to the crime through forensic evidence, whether it's the gun, the bullet, physical evidence he might have left behind at the shooting location, DNA, fingerprints. I don't think the fact that there was a large crowd there is going to impede the investigation, and it doesn't sound like anyone that was there actually saw the shooter, at least the shooting take place. So I think that's a non-issue, quite frankly.
Give us an idea of the federal, state, local agencies all cooperating. Who runs the show when something like this of this scale happens?
Typically, Brian, it's going to be the agency that has lead authority for the prosecution. And now, I don't know all the facts. I don't know what's been determined from a legal standpoint yet. If this individual is charged federally, if there's a violation of federal law that he's committed by carrying out this act, and what comes to mind would be domestic terrorism, then the FBI will be the lead agency in the case. If that doesn't exist, he certainly has committed a homicide in violation of Utah state statutes. And whether it be the campus police department or the Utah State Police, I'm not sure who would ultimately have jurisdiction there. But right now, the main focus is identifying and apprehending the suspect. And all the agencies that are involved in the investigation are going to do that literally hand in glove, trying to work together to share assets, to share resources, and bring this to a quick conclusion.
Ross, can you take us inside, I guess, the mindset at the FBI here? How do they find the balance of continuing their investigation, but also making sure to share bits and pieces of information with the media, knowing that so many people are interested in this? How do they find the balance between the two?
Well, as you can see, they've released images of what they believe is the shooter. They're calling him a person of interest, but I think he's the suspect in the case. They've asked for the public's help in identifying the person responsible for this crime. They've offered a $100,000 reward. So I think that's been a very big tell so far. You can't conduct your investigations, though, through the media. And the ideal is that this person is going to be identified, is going to be apprehended, and will stand trial for this terrible act. So you have to follow the rules on pretrial publicity. He's entitled to a fair trial by a jury of his peers. And despite the heinous nature of the crime, despite the public outcry about what's happened, those rights, his right to a fair trial, have to be upheld and followed.
And Ross, this obviously happened at a university campus. Maybe are there any safety or security measures or reviews that maybe all universities or public spaces should be making or changing in light of this?
Well, that's a great question, Ryan. Charlie Kirk was a private individual. He was not a government official. So he didn't have and wasn't entitled to Secret Service protection. Not that that is going to eliminate any possible threat. If you look back to Butler, Pennsylvania last year and what happened to then candidate Trump, there's no guarantee of safety in this world. He had his own private security detail, which traveled with him. They coordinated the security for the event with the campus police, who I believe had a fairly robust presence as well. But obviously, they didn't take appropriate steps. They didn't take into account the possibility of somebody stalking Charlie Kirk and looking to assassinate him.
What's the next step in this process?
The manhunt for the suspect. Federal authorities, local authorities are going to be working intensively to try and identify him, in all likelihood with the help of the public. Whether the reward offer will be an incentive for somebody to come forward or not remains to be seen. I think there's a lot of evidence yet to be discovered, primarily with respect to the firearm and possibly with respect to the crime scene, the location that the shooter used from which to stalk Charlie Kirk and fire the fatal shot, plus social media. You can't do much right now because you don't know who the suspect is, and we don't know all the evidence that's been recovered so far. Obviously, the authorities are being fairly tight-lipped in what they release and why. One of the reasons being that this shooter is following, in all likelihood, the account of the investigation through the media, and they don't want to tip him off to any leads that they might be following up or any actions that they're going to be taking going forward.
All right, Ross Rice, former FBI agent, thanks so much for your perspective on as that investigation and search continues for the accused shooter of Charlie Kirk. Thanks again for your time.
My pleasure, Brian. Thank you.
All right, time is now 2:56. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back here on Chicago Live. Welcome back to Chicago Live. These are some live pictures now from Sky Fox. We have just learned that a small plane has gone into, or has crashed into Lake Michigan. We've learned that it is near Racine, Wisconsin. This looks like a boat, maybe a diving team, maybe searching that area there. We are told that everyone on board that small plane is accounted for. Again, we just learned of this moments ago. We're bringing it to you live here on Chicago Live this afternoon. Looks like maybe a search and rescue boat that is out there in Lake Michigan. We've learned that a small plane has crashed into the lake. This is not far from Racine, Wisconsin. But good news is that we've learned that everybody on board that small plane is safe and accounted for. We will continue to bring you more updates as we get them throughout the day here on Fox 32 Chicago. So we're bringing Emily Walls for a look at the forecast. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. So forecast-wise, things look really good as we're, kind of gearing up for the weekend. Right now, it's gorgeous outside. We're right around 80 degrees. And then tomorrow, we're going to crank up the heat a little bit more. We're talking mid-80s tomorrow. There is going to be a chance for showers, couple thunderstorms being possible Friday night into Saturday. Saturday, if you have plans in the morning through about midday, there's going to be a chance of showers, couple thunderstorms, but then after that, we're going to dry things out and things look really good for the rest of the weekend. And despite the cloud cover, despite the rain chances Saturday morning, we're still going to make it to the upper 80s.
Upper 80s? I didn't throw those shorts away just yet.
Yeah, that's 10 degrees above average. So looking really good. And then that heat, that's going to linger all the way into next week. Couple 90s could be possible. That's right. Wow. We're not done with summertime yet.
I was trying to get to the fall.
Not yet. You're not allowed to.
All right, Emily, thanks so much for your time. And that is going to do it for this edition of Chicago Live. Again, we are going to continue to provide you more updates a little bit later today on that small plane that crashed into Lake Michigan. But thank
movements to get him home today and with his family. Yesterday, during the investigative process, we located a couple of persons of interest. We interviewed those individuals, and after releasing them and after clearing them of being suspects, they faced scrutiny, they faced threats. We asked the public to be patient with the investigative process. These individuals were not suspects, they were people of interest. We ask that you do not impose into those people and that investigative process. They don't deserve that harassment for being subject to that.